Okay, so remember, we're going to do a second day of ellipses. Remember that you should be using that blue formula chart. You should have that out. You don't have to memorize this formula, so I would suggest you have that out every day during this time. Okay. These types of problems are a little bit different than day one, because on day one, I gave you the equation, and then I made you find all the stuff. Look what's happening on this example. I'm giving you some of the stuff, and then I'm asking you for the equation. Okay? So, there's a grid here. The grid is not there because you have to draw the picture. The grid is there because it makes the problem so much easier if you just graph it. Okay, let's start with the center. So -6. Let's label that with a little c for center. And then it says endpoints of the major axis. What's another word for endpoints of major axis? Yeah, vertex. And there are 2 of them, so we'll graph both of them. -3, 5, and they should be in line with the center. They also should be the same distance from the center. How far are they? Is one vertex from the center? 3. So that actually tells me the A value is 3. Okay, then it says endpoints of the minor axis. These are the co-vertices, or co-vertex would be singular. And we can plot these. So looks like right here and right here. Okay, so here's my ellipse. Notice the focus points are not in this one, nor do we really care about them. What does this co-vertex tell me? Co-vertex is how far away from the center? 2, right? So B is 2. Okay, now we're going to use the standard form. Now with ellipses, that X always comes first. So here's what I'm doing right now. I am going and setting this up how all ellipses look like. They all look like this. We just have to figure out where everything goes. Okay, the numbers that go next to X and Y, we get those from the center. So if the center is at -6, if that's the X value, we're going to do the opposite. We're going to write +6 next to the X. So then what should go next to the Y? -5. So that part's not bad. Now, I wrote down what A and B were, and that made this next part easier. Okay, A is 3. So remember, A squared is going to go underneath one of these, and A squared would be 9. So is 9 going to go underneath the X or the Y? We'll look at the picture. See how the 3 right here was horizontal? X has to do with horizontal, so that's where you're going to put A squared, left and right. And then whereas the Y is up and down, that's the B, so that's going to be 2 squared, which is 4. It would be easy to get these two mixed up, so you have to be careful about that.
Would there be an addition sign in the middle?
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. I was working on some hyperbola stuff earlier this morning. I think that's why I was thinking minus. So minus, if you remember, is for hyperbolas. We haven't reviewed that yet, but yes, thank you. That should be plus. And that's your answer. Some students think these problems are way easier than what we even were doing before. Some think these are harder. It really just depends kind of on how you think. Okay, ultimately you need to be able to do both types of problems. So then, how do you think we're going to start example 2? Like, give me some action words here.
Graphing.
Graph it. So go ahead and do that. Go ahead and graph all those points and label them and see if you can kind of get a head start on this problem. Okay, so notice what I did here. 17 would have been way above, which is fine, but I kind of just brought it down a little bit. The whole point of these graphs, the graph isn't our answer. It's just like a tool to figure out what the answer is. So this is kind of what I did. do we have enough information to figure out the center? Because that's, no matter what problem we're doing, you have to know the center. Can you figure out where it is?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be halfway between the co-vertices. Now, if you wanted to, you could use midpoint if you wanted to do more work, but really just go halfway. And so because I kind of changed this, you got to think about, okay, well, what are the coordinates there? That's going to be -5, and then the y value is going to be 15. So I'm going to go ahead and set up the problem as much as I know how to do. It's going to be x plus 5 squared, and then y minus 15 squared. Remember, always opposite sign next to the x or the y. And always equals 1. Okay, the rest of this is figuring out what is A and what is B, and then which number goes where. So remember, A is the distance from center to vertex. So how far was that? 5. So does 25 go underneath the x or y? Yeah, how did you know that? Yeah, it's horizontal. It's left and right. So that means that center to co-vertex, that's 2. That's the B, and so we put a 4 underneath the y. And there we go. How are we doing? Who likes these better than the other ones? Okay. Who's ambivalent? That means you don't care. You like these better? Okay, let's look. Actually, I want you guys, well, it's a little different. We'll go ahead and do this one together. So we're going to start totally by graphing. So find the equation in standard form ellipse. It has, remember this, you can say, I've heard this called foci, or you can just call it focus points, or focus point, or one focus. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Make sure you label that with an F. And then -2, -5. And they should always line up, either vertically or horizontally. And then 1, -2. It's a co-vertex. Remember, minor axis is co-vertex, major axis would be vertex. So we know both of these, and you can almost kind of like looking at like crosshairs. You can figure out where the center is, but the center is going to be in the middle of either 2 vertices, 2 co-vertices, or focus points. However you need to do that, you have to figure out the center. So that looks like that's going to be 1, -5. I also want you to notice that, I didn't point this out in the other ones, but it's always going to share some numbers from either the x or the y. And so this part, hopefully we feel pretty comfortable with at this point. Setting up the center. All right, now, do we know, which one are they giving us here, A or B? I'm going to go ahead and write all of them here because we need to ultimately find everything. A is going to be the distance from center to vertex. Oh. So they don't give us that. We're going to have to do a little bit of work for that. But they give you B right here. 1, 2, 3. And notice that that's vertical. So B squared, which is 9, is going to go underneath the Y. So the big question is, well, how do we find A, or A squared? Well, because the distance from the center to the co-vertex is 3. That's the focus over here. We are going to do this. So here's my next question is, what information have we not used yet? We haven't used this information. Okay, so that's 1, 2, 3. That's also 3, right? Yeah. And we have this formula that goes c squared equals a squared minus b squared. Okay, and so we know that c and b are both 3. Okay, so watch what I'm going to do here. I'm going to move this down a little bit. So 3 squared, that would be 9. I don't know what a squared is. B squared, that's also 9. So how would I get a squared by itself? Plus 9. Do we even really care what a is, or do we care what a squared is? A squared. So don't even waste your time trying to square root 18, because you're just going to turn around and square it anyway. So when they give you information about a focus, you're going to have to use this formula, just like how we use that formula to find the focus in the earlier problems.